Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, a couple of days ago, a brand new Monster Hunter game was announced, which is one of the most singularly exciting sentences that someone can say to me other than, "We have unlimited garlic bread." And if I ever hear both of those on the same day, I think I'd probably die on the spot. This new game then is Monster Hunter Outlanders. And as someone who is staying as completely blind and spoiler-free as possible for Monster Hunter Wilds, this game is the perfect sort of outlet for my just raw excitement at the concept of new Monster Hunter, and especially at the idea of new monsters especially, which this game is just already confirmed to have. Today we're basically just going to sit down and have you listen to me and my opinions on the new game, and we'll also of course be going over anything new that's been released about the game over the last day, which is a bit smaller than our last update on it. There's no developer interview or anything of that magnitude. In fact, there's been no proper new reveals or releases except for a couple of wallpapers for the game, so you can harness your excitement for it either with a mobile-sized phone wallpaper or a full desktop-sized wallpaper too. The one thing that you could take from this potentially is if they are doing a landscape wallpaper, maybe there will actually be a PC version of this game. But that is pretty wild speculation, honestly, and it's just sort of me imprinting my hopes onto the game and the post because I would like to have a PC version, at least personally. All that said, it is now time to talk about my emotions for this, and, well, I have a lot of them. The first and biggest is, of course, pure excitement at new Monster Hunter. It's just the default feeling that I have. The second upon hearing it was a mobile game, there was then a bit of concern, a little bit of caution, and then once I actually saw some gameplay and heard a bit about the control scheme for it, it turned back into mostly excitement. Essentially, the most concise way for me to phrase it or word it is cautious optimism. The concept of a properly open-world Monster Hunter game with survival elements, like building up essentially your own fleet of outlanders and using them in combat as well when you are hunting, the two new hunting buddies in the monkey and the bird, and the fact that they both have meaningful roles in combat, and the bird can essentially be a hunting horn, which is really awesome, honestly. And seemingly these companions can possibly even be controlled by the player to initiate different moves too, which I love as a concept. For all intents and purposes, this sounds like a combination between Genshin Impact and Pal World, but it's Monster Hunter, and that simply sounds like something with a ton of potential to be really fun to me. Not to mention the Wild Hearts type mid-hunt build structures like the air fan that shoots you up into the air before you use your glider to go floating around the map, or the ballista that you can force create on the go, on the spot, wherever you want, and use in the open world against monsters. And it sounds like a really refreshing concept of Monster Hunter combat and the typical Monster Hunter formula. And the fact that there will be proper new monsters in this as well is awesome. And people saying it doesn't seem like there's much of anything new, honestly, haven't analyzed it properly, because you've got a new Rathian with a full-on 2 new modes, both the melty purple hot fire mode and orange spiky crystal mode, which seems like a bit more physical based too. Theoretically, this is actually a variation of a monster that can be applied to plenty of other returning monsters to make them very different in their combat as well. Not to mention, on top of that, there's just the depth of the companions' involvement in combat too. Early reports are that they are just really properly involved, more than in any previous Monster Hunter games, and the developers have explicitly stated that they want this to feel like you can actually have proper equals in your hunting party. This extends to the concept of like bonus Outlanders 2 that you can switch to and then actually control and play yourself. Obviously, this will be a bit more limited if you use the multiplayer for the game, because there will be multiplayer, you can hunt with other players, but when you're hunting solo, you get a full suite of companions to work with. And again, conceptually, I just love the idea of these as essentially an outlet for really cool, unique hunter type designs with unique versions of equipment as well, like the goddamn tiny child Kulu Yaku skull dual blades. That right there, ladies and gentlemen, is a head on a goddamn stick. And if you know me, you know my thoughts on heads on sticks. The fact that these outriders are also tied to like special skills with a sort of energy gauge required to use them reminds me a lot of Monster Hunter Generations and the Hunter arts as well, which were in those, and that bodes quite well as far as I'm concerned, both because personally I really enjoyed Hunter arts as a system and I really enjoyed Generations too, but also because that sounds personally like a great mechanic for a mobile game, Monster Hunter specifically, that will just by default essentially have less control options than a proper console Monster Hunter game would. But ideally, it will still try to give you super cool flashy moves, which is exactly what this system here, the special skills, seems to be aimed at. With all that said then, we have the other side of this coin as well, the negatives, the things that are making me have some sort of cautious approach to this. And these are just sort of making me have a bit of apprehension as well. And first, it's a mobile game. There are good and enjoyable mobile games, even ones with action combat as well. It's a thing that can be done on a phone, and anyone who disagrees simply hasn't tried what is out there on the market properly today, because this is a sort of side of gaming that has really evolved over the last few years. And while mobile phone games used to be sort of like a joke compared to like console release games, now there's some really impressive stuff being done on phones. However, it is very much true that a mobile game still does have inherent limitations compared to like a full release Monster Hunter game. But why would we expect another full release Monster Hunter game when Wilds is just on the horizon anyway? So why compare it to that? Just think about it for what it is, care about it for what it is, and judge it based on what they're giving us. So my first concern is if it actually feels good to control in my own hands, because there is a little bit of a limitation that can be accomplished with like little virtual joysticks on the screen and tap-based feedback, but there is obviously potential if the combat feels like it has some weight to it, and if the animations feel like they make sense for the inputs that you're doing too. That said, early reports that I've heard from other people about this are positive, so I am hopeful for it in general. I just prefer to avoid full personal judgment about any of it until I've actually experienced it myself. The other main thing then, and this is a very big one, is monetization. We know it is a free-to-play game, which means in order to exist, there simply will be microtransactions, because that's the free-to-play business model. The main worry point of comparison here is, of course, Monster Hunter Now. This is a very enjoyable hunting experience type mobile game, and it definitely does a great job of offering a simplified Monster Hunter combat system in the early game of it, but once you get to a certain point in progression for the game, it just slows down to a halt, and my general biggest complaint about Monster Hunter Now is that the potions themselves were tied to microtransactions, which means you were just hard limited on your ability to play without spending money, unless you very quickly adapted and learned to get a 100% perfect dodge rate against pretty much every monster that you fought. That said, Monster Hunter Outlanders is not a Monster Hunter Now. They are developed by entirely different companies, they're made differently from the ground up, it's a totally different game. And from what I have heard, at least theoretically, the microtransactions for Outlanders will be rolling for better Outlander specialized guys, like a gacha game with these special characters, and then possibly also like a stamina meter that decides whether or not you can get rewards at the end of a hunt. But in my opinion, importantly, if that's the case, that means the hunting itself shouldn't be limited. You can hunt as much as you want, which means that you can play for extended sessions if you want to. You just may not get rewards from every hunt. That's not fully confirmed yet, but that's what I've heard, and if that is the case, I'm pretty okay with that. Overall, I definitely am a little bit concerned it does exist, but given the game is full-on partnered with Capcom and has some Capcom producers on the development team as well, that is a very positive sign in my opinion. And both because this is Monster Hunter and because it honestly looks quite fun to me, I am definitely willing to give it the sort of benefit of the doubt and delay my worries until we get concrete information on the monetization strategy for it all, which we've been told will of course have explained detail at a later time. That just about does it for today then everyone, just a recap of the small amount of new info from Monster Hunter Outlanders for the day, along with mostly just my own opinions and thoughts on the whole thing, as it is the first opportunity I've had to talk with you all about it. Hope you've enjoyed this segment, and of course let me know any of your own thoughts on it all down in the comments below. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.